All right, everyone, buckle up because we're diving headfirst into a world that's got it all: kings, knights, immortality, you name it, this excerpt has it. And just from the looks of it, we're in for one heck of a ride.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what immediately grabs me? Just a quick glance at this excerpt. And you can already see how differently people approach power in a world where death might not be the end. It really makes you think.
Exactly. And where better to start than with our main players? King Omex, young and eager to prove himself as a just ruler.
Which is where things get interesting, right? Because you can practically feel this clash of ideals right from the beginning. Olmecs wants to right every wrong, even if it means stepping outside his kingdom's borders.
He's all about that pure, unadulterated justice, isn't he? He even argues that justice shouldn't be bound by something as simple as a map. But then we have Valiant.
Ah, Valiant. Now, there's a character with a past. You can tell just from his reluctance to use lethal force. It runs deeper than just experience, wouldn't you say?
Almost like it's personal, the way he hesitates.
Yeah.
And when Omex pleads with him to see his side about rescuing those traitors, even though it's risky.
Well, that's the thing about Omex, isn't it? He wears his heart on his sleeve. But Valiant, those cryptic warnings he throws out about some wounds never healing, that's not just about physical scars.
It makes you wonder, what has he seen? What's he lived through that makes Omex's idealism seem so naive?
Exactly. And speaking of getting a crash course in reality, let's talk about that ambush. It's like the story goes from 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. One minute they're riding high, the next they're staring captivity in the face.
Talk about a sudden shift in tone. One minute we're all caught up in this almost adventurous energy, and the next, bam. It's a gut punch, for sure.
But brilliant, don't you think? I mean, it completely subverts your expectations
Yeah.
and then enters Edger. Not your average run-of-the-mill villain either.
Not at all. I mean, this is the guy who drops a line like, immortal humans are not above the law. Just like that, a whole Pandora's box of questions blows open.
Right. Who else is immortal? How'd they get that way? And who is Edger to play judge, jury, and executioner? Suddenly, Omex's black and white view of justice seems a little too simple, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely, especially if immortality is a part of the equation. If we're talking about beings who could live for centuries, their idea of justice might operate on a whole other timeline.
It makes you think about the long game, the consequences that could echo for generations. And then, of course, there's Isla.
Isla. Mysterious, helpful, but only up to a point. What's her deal? What's her angle? It's like she's playing a game within a game, and we don't even know the rules yet.
And the way she vanishes just as quickly as she appears adds a whole other layer of intrigue, don't you think? Makes you wonder if she'll be back for an encore. And whose side she'll be on when the curtain rises again. Because something tells me this story is far from over.
And then, just like that, the stakes go through the roof. I mean, Neil and Joe. We're not talking quick, clean deaths here. It's brutal, almost like the author wanted to remind us that even in a world of immortals, death can still pack a punch.
It's true. And the way it happens, it really makes you think about how their deaths impact the entire story. We go from this fantastical escape, magic, freedom, the whole 9 yards, and then bam, back to reality, with a harsh reminder that actions have consequences.
It's like the rug's been pulled out from under us, and suddenly the stakes are very, very real, especially because we're talking about characters who were close to Omax. We were just getting to know them.
Exactly. This isn't just about rescuing traitors or even escaping captivity anymore. It's personal. These deaths, they hit home the true cost of this conflict, wouldn't you say?
And Omax's reaction, talk about a turning point. You can practically feel the grief and rage radiating off the page. That vow he makes against Edger, chilling, especially after everything Valiant said about the dangers of vengeance.
Well, that's the thing about grief, isn't it? It can make you do things you never thought possible, even go against the advice of someone you trust. In that moment, consumed by grief, Omex becomes exactly what Valiant feared, a ruler blinded by the need for retribution.
It's like all of Valiant's warnings went in one ear and out the other, and it brings us back to that question of immortality, doesn't it? We still don't know the hows or whys of it all. Is it natural, magical, maybe even a curse?
Each possibility adds a whole new layer to Omex's vow, don't you think? If Edger can be killed, what does true justice even look like for someone who might be effectively immortal? Does it change the equation?
Because even if Omex manages to defeat him, what's to stop Edger from coming back? Maybe even stronger and more vengeful than before.
It really highlights the moral complexity of it all. We're not just dealing with a simple good versus evil situation here. And let's not forget, Valiant has seen it all probably over centuries. He's carrying the weight of experience. He knows firsthand how vengeance can twist even the purest intentions.
His warning to Omex wasn't just a suggestion, was it? It was a plea born from a deep understanding of the potential consequences. And that's what elevates the story beyond your typical hero's journey.
Absolutely. We're witnessing Omex teetering on the edge of a very dangerous path, in danger becoming the very thing he's fighting against. And that's a story that resonates far beyond the pages of this world, would you say?
Without a doubt. It's a reminder that power, even with the best intentions, can corrupt. And that the pursuit of justice, especially when dealing with forces beyond our understanding, is rarely a straight line. To just hit me, the excerpt never actually spells it out. Are there different types of immortality at play here?
That's a great point. We've got Valiant bearing the weight of it all, and then there's Edger seemingly in pursuit of it, or maybe a different version of it. Like,
Right.
what if one is more organic, a natural part of their being, while the other, well, let's just say there might be strings attached.
Right, like some kind of consequence, a price to pay. And for someone like Edger, so obsessed with control, who knows what he'd be willing to risk to achieve it? It really makes you think about the lengths people will go to for power, especially in a world where death might not be the end.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is immortality something to be desired or feared, a blessing or a curse? This excerpt only gives us a glimpse into this world. But one thing's for sure, immortality, whatever form it takes, has left its mark. It influences everything, how people view power, justice, even life and death itself.
Absolutely. And it all circles back to those big questions we started with. What does justice truly mean when you're dealing with beings who might live for centuries? What price are they willing to pay to achieve their goals? This excerpt has been like a crash course in moral dilemmas, and I'm left with more questions than answers.
Me too. But that's the beauty of a story like this, isn't it? It sparks your imagination, leaves you wanting more. It's like the author has scattered puzzle pieces. Now it's up to us to put them together.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to step back and let our listeners dive into their own explorations of this world. What will they discover? What possibilities will they unearth? Because in the end, the most fascinating journeys are the ones we take ourselves.